listeners and viewers of This Week in Interview. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Interview with your host and guide, Anthony Drago. I hope you are having a decent week tonight. I know there are some folks in Florida who are just beginning to face the wrath of Hurricane Milton. And, our thoughts and our blessings go out to you that even if it may be a horrific time, that you come out on the other side with the best possible result. As a matter of fact, um, one of my sons live in just outside of Orlando, and he told me that they're expecting to be in the thick of it from right now, 8 p.m. until 10 a.m. tomorrow. That's a very, very long time. So for those of you who have family in Florida who are in the path of Hurricane Milton, we wish them all the best, and that those dire predictions will have spurred them to take precautionary measures, but that they would not come to fruition, and the experience will actually not be as harrowing or as devastating as is being forecast. So tonight we have a very, very important discussion. Um, on the 17th of September, we received a press release that informed the public that a legal matter has been initiated on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. A case number DOMHCV 2024/0181 has been filed in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, High Court of Justice in the Commonwealth of Dominica. The case seeks several declarations from the court concerning the general elections held in Dominica on December 6, 2019 and December 6, 2022. The aim is to challenge the legality and constitutionality of these elections and to ensure that the democratic rights of the people of Dominica are upheld. And so that is what our discussion is about tonight. By the way, folks, welcome again. Those of you who listen regularly, welcome back. I know we've set the standard and you expect us to keep up to it every week, and we try our best. And I think that this is going to be a wonderful discussion tonight. My guest is no stranger to This Week in Interview or to TDN Radio, Mr. Alvin Thomas. And he and I are going to talk about the details of the case. What is the motivation for filing the case? What is the not expected, but what is the hopeful outcome? And if the hopeful outcome is realized, what difference would it make? What impact would it have? So, if you're listening to us in Dominica, this is particularly relevant to you. RVR Jams Radio on DGPA channel 59 carries This Week in Interview live. Good evening to you and good evening to the management of RVR Jams. Also in Toronto, in the Toronto market, right? Radio Online SBE also carries This Week in Interview live. But tonight we have a lot to unpack. This is an exciting development by any means. A lawsuit being filed in the court against members of the well, we'll see. We'll find out who the defendants are. We'll find out who the defendants are. As a matter of fact, the correspondence lists my guest tonight um, as the person to contact if you want to have any further information about the matter. And so I'm not going to take a lot of time with introductions. I think most people are familiar with This Week in Interview on TDN, so I'm going to save the long intro. Alvin needs no introduction. On the flyer, I called him a trade unionist, a senior civil servant. He served at almost at the highest level in the civil service. He was Postmaster General in Dominica. He was Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism in the late 90s, and he's had several roles. But not only that, he is a constant and present voice, advocating on different matters on behalf of the people of Dominica. Very passionate, very tenacious, and very informed. And it's always a pleasure to. I watch him on his other programs on my program. He always come prepared, and he's always leafing through some data or some document, and he comes with his facts. And you can challenge him if you want. He welcomes the challenge, but you have to come good because he comes prepared. And I expect no less tonight. I'm going to try my best to keep him in check and see if we can do this. I already know it's hopeless to try to do 60 minutes, so we'll try to do it in 90 minutes. So let me give a very warm welcome to someone who I consider to be my brother and my friend, Mr. Alvin Thomas. Welcome back to the speaking interview, my brother.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for those kind words. And let me say a pleasant good evening. Of course, you left out one, which is JC's. That's dear to my heart. You know that. And all the other accolades are good. I don't get me wrong. But that foundational JC's training that both you and I got is what have propelled us to where we are today. So
Without a doubt.
whenever I have the opportunity to speak, I always say that, I thank the JC's movement for putting in me and giving me those qualities and skills that I possess today. But let me say thank you, Tony, for inviting me again to this weekend interview. It's always a pleasure to come here and to have a conversation with the people. I always see myself not just coming to give information or share information, but to have a conversation, to have a dialogue. And out of that dialogue, based on the information presented, folks can leave the program a little more informed, more knowledgeable, and in the end, to take action. Yes. That's critical, to take action. As they say in the good book says, faith without work is useless. You must have faith and say, well, yes, God is going to do this and that for me, and I'll pray. But God is saying, yes, pray, but do something about it.
Yep.
And it is my hope that out of the conversation, we can be propelled enough to take some action. So it's a pleasure to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you, my brother. And yes, you are a JCI senator, JC's international senator. And JC is an organization that trains leaders. And so I encourage every person who is between the age of 18 and 40 to look up a chapter of the JCs in your area and apply for membership. You will not regret it, no matter what stage in your development. The earlier, the better. And I had the pleasure of taking the reins of the organization in Dominica from Alvin. Alvin was the president of JC's for 2 terms, I believe, and then I succeeded him. So he and I go way back, and our passion and love for the organization knows no bound. And also, it's so important that you raise it to JC's, because the JC's organization, apart from training folks, young people to become business leaders and community leaders, it also instills in its members the need for protocol, for decorum, for establishment of processes, and the need to follow those set protocols and not deviate from them, because as soon as you start deviating from those protocols, you're starting down a slippery slope. And if folks are not adhering to rules, if you think there's a rule that is wrong, you have a way and a means and a method to challenge those rules. And that is basically what we're talking about tonight, that there were elections that were held in 2019 and 2022, and there are some citizens of Dominica who felt that their rights were violated in the way those elections were conducted, and they're going the route of going to the courts and following the method that's put in place to try to challenge those rules.
Uh,
Alvin, I'm going to jump. We're going.
let me just say though, I mean, we don't want to predominate the discussion with justice, but let me
Mhm.
just say it's relevant to what we're going to discuss in a few, because the fourth tenet, we have what is called a JCI creed that speaks to what, as an organization, as a people, as a group, as a young people, we believe in. And the fourth tenets of that creed says that government should be of laws rather than of men.
That's right.
And the tenets of that creed simply means that no one should be above the law, and that the law should be the same for all people, no matter what status they hold in society. The government must be based on constitutional law, except accepted, and ratified by a majority of the people. The power to change laws and elect governments should remain in the hands of the majority of the people. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, spoke of a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. This line in the JCI Creed crystallizes what President Lincoln was talking about so many decades ago when we adopted that line. So I think it is so relevant to what we're about to discuss. And I just thought I would make mention of that creed, that tenet.
No,
In our,
definitely, and I'm happy that you brought that up because in preparing for the program, one of the thoughts I brought up was that um, what protects the people from tyranny? What protects us from vesting power in a person that turns out to be a tyrant? Because tyrants and dictators, many of them come to power through elections.
yep.
Not many of them came through a coup and overthrew whatever and came to power that way. A lot of them came to power by elections and then violated the people's trust and decided I'm going to keep this power to myself and not
Mhm.
give it back. And so in a democracy, we cannot depend on the personality of the person who is in power
Right.
because everybody has a different personality. And if that
Absolutely.
person seems to have tyrannical ambitions, then we are at risk of that person not wanting to give the power back. We have the experience in the United States of January 6th, when even although there was an election, um, they departed from the accepted norm where there is an acceptance of defeat and a peaceful transition of power to the
Mhm.
successor.
Mhm.
So there are all kinds of different ways. But so tonight we are talking about two elections. The election that was held in Dominica in 2022, 2019, and the election that was held in December of 2022. And the claim that you represent, you are not one of the claimants,
No.
but the claimants that you represent, which really is being filed on behalf of the people of Dominica, the citizens of Dominica, has
Right.
named 10 defendants.
That's right. Nine.
Uh,
Nine.
nine.
Yes.
Defendant number one is the president of the Commonwealth of Dominica. I don't know if I should let you do it and then you will explain the
Sure.
rationale for why each one is named, or if you wanted to do a preamble and introduction of the
Sure.
action first,
I'll be
and
happy to
then
do that.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I'll hand it over to you to
Yeah.
really lay
I'll
it
be
out.
happy to do that. Well, again, Tony, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to be able to share tonight with your listeners that are logged in. Yes, on the 4th of September of last month, 2024, a very significant legal step was taken. And that was to file a matter in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court and the High Court of the Commonwealth of Dominica, where a broad cross-section of four claimants, one representing the area of Point Michel, one from Collio, one from Maho, and another from the Kinfield. So it's a pretty broad cross-section of
Right.
the people. Representing on behalf of the people of Dominica, has filed this matter in the courts seeking several declarations, to include a declaration from the court that the general election held on the 6th of December 2019, as well as the one on the 6th of December 2022, were unconstitutional. We are also seeking a declaration that Section 7C and Section 11.3C, as well as 11.7 subsection 3 of the Registration of Electors Act, Chapter 203 of the Laws of Dominica, are ultra-virus and in contravention of Section 33.2A of the Constitution of Dominica. We are also seeking a declaration that the Register of Electors used during the 2019 and the 2022 elections were not compiled pursuant to the laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, rendering the election results to be both unconstitutional. Let me say from the onset, as a spokesperson on this particular matter, that the claimants are contending that this significant irregularities breaches the constitutional and legal framework governing elections in the Commonwealth of Dominica. And as such, we are seeking the intervention of the court to uphold the principle of democracy, transparency, and accountability, which are the cornerstones of our nation. Very often you hear the term being said, election was free and fair. What does that mean, free and fair? Was there transparency? Was there accountability at the election? Or is it just free and fair, meaning folks were able to walk in, they were not harassed, they cast their vote, the polling stations open early, and everybody left and go happily? Does that make the election transparent? Does it make it the accountability? Is there an element of accountability? So we are of the view that this is a matter of great public interest, and it is essential that every citizen of Dominica are fully informed of the legal process that safeguards their democratic right. And therefore, we are hopeful, and we are asking that the voices of all Dominicans be heard on this matter, because as I said, they do represent the interest of every Dominican. And let me just say as well that to emphasize that this action being taken is not about political partisanship, but rather it's about the integrity of our electoral system and the fundamental democratic right of the people of Dominica. And therefore, we call on all Dominicans to be fully engaged, fully informed, as we seek clarity and justice through the courts. Let me also, in doing that, refer very quickly to the Constitution of Dominica, because you heard there, we are asking declaration that this matter, some of these matters that I just mentioned, were unconstitutional. Section 116 of our Constitution of Dominica, Chapter 10, heading Miscellaneous. Declaration of Republic. Dominica shall be a sovereign democratic republic. That is Section 116 of the Constitution. Dominica shall be a sovereign democratic republic. Section 117 of that same Constitution reads, this Constitution is the supreme law of Dominica, and subject to the provision of this Constitution, if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution shall prevail, and the other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. And every citizen of Dominica has a right under this Constitution, if they feel that they have been aggrieved, affected in any way whatsoever, can take a matter to the courts and have the courts intervene. And you have rightly said, in the absence of adjudicating a matter in the courts, your only next option is chaos or tyranny.
Yep.
In other words, if you and your neighbor have a problem over a land dispute, you can choose to take the matter to the courts, where the courts will decide and determine who's right, who is wrong. Or you can pick up your cutlass and challenge the other person, or the person will pick up their cutlass and it will be a cutlass fight. In a democracy, we can't operate like that. Hence, therefore, we believe that the elections were unconstitutional, and therefore these persons, this claimant, felt they had the right under the Constitution to take this matter to the court. As the conversation develops, I will refer you to various sections of the CCJ's report that was issued back in July 5th of 2022 to substantiate some of the areas that we've mentioned. Let me also indicate that the intention here tonight is not to adjudicate the case in the media. Neither on TDN Radio or any other media houses. That is left for the courts to determine. However, I will speak within broad parameters to give clarity and explain some of the aspects in terms of what in our view may be unconstitutional as far as the matter filed in the courts.
Right. So, and we're going to dive into that because a democracy, any system, for any system to thrive, it has to have a mechanism by which it can self-correct. So if you have an organization and the organization has a board, there has to be written into the articles of that organization the means by which, if there's a decision that turns out to be not a correct decision, how do you recognize that decision and inform people and then make a different decision so that the organization can grow? In a country, those correcting mechanism is done by what is supposed to be independent commissions, independent bodies. So in government, we would have an integrity commission. We would have the electoral commission, which is supposed to be independent of government and therefore independent of government and therefore can look at the electoral system, and if they see that there's something that is not quite, that doesn't make it quite free and fair, can suggest, and when everything is going well, everybody can air it out and take corrective action. Because of the way our country is made up, we have elections and we have first past the post, where the party that wins 11 seats in the case of Dominica forms government. And there's so many ways that the government controls those bodies that are supposed to put checks and balances on the same government. So, for example, the Electoral Commission depends on the government for its budget. And therefore, if you have a government who is so inclined, they can influence the budget of the Electoral Commission and decide, I'm not giving you enough money to be able to revamp the electors list, to come to test a new election system and so on. You get the drift.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
when all of those mechanisms are either corrupted or dysfunctional or made to be powerless, and the citizens of Dominica decide that I think my rights are being aggrieved, the one of the recourse they have is the court, and that is what this action is. I understand that's what this action is about,
Absolutely.
because we've had for the last 10-15 years, electoral reform, quote unquote electoral reform, has been the topic of discussion every time there's an election approaching, every time after an election, and folks have not seen any changes. And so, Alvin, I'm going to give you a chance to maybe outline what areas the claimant, the citizens who are filing this legal action, what specific areas are they citing in which they think their rights as citizens are not, were not fairly represented in the electoral process?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tony. Let me agree with you. And to say, I referenced earlier the CCJ's report, and you're right. For almost 2 decades now, going into 2 decades, we all have recognized that there is something wrong with our electoral process in Dominica. We all recognize that. We've had several interventions by various organizations, the OAS, the CARICOM, the Commonwealth. I mean, Mia Motley's report, Sir Dennis Byron's report. I mean, we've had tons and tons of reports, and they all have recognized, wait a while now, hold up. Something is not right. Something needs to be fixed. To the extent that the CCJ document, and let me just, before I talk about the CCJ document, let me just explain something. Earlier on another media station, pundit, or I don't even know what to describe this individual, but called as a spokesperson for the Labour Party and seemed to give the impression that the CCJ report is just, it's just a piece of document, pay no mind to it. There is in law what is referred to as dicta. In law, dicta refers to a comment or a suggestion or an observation made by a judge in an opinion that is not necessary to resolve a case. And as such, it is not legally binding on other courts, but may still be cited as persuasive authority in future litigation, also referred to as dictum and judicial dicta. So in other words, what I'm saying here is that although the CCJ's report may not necessarily have been a legally binding decision, and the reason being that when the matter was first submitted to the High Court, the Judge Glasgow, the High Court Judge Glasgow, throughout the entire matter. So the claimants did not even have the opportunity to plead their case, to present their case and say, okay, here are my situation. And let me hear, and then here's the other side, and arrive at a conclusion. So as a result, the matter was referred as interlocutory. Interlocutory, meaning that this matter did not get to a conclusion with a decision. As such, the matter could not go to the Court of Appeal, the Caribbean Court of Appeal, which is where it would next go. So say, for example, the claimant had lost, the government won, the claimant could appeal to the Court of Appeal. The other way around, same thing. And finally, if both parties are not satisfied at the Caribbean Court of Appeal, then it would go to the CCJ, which is our highest court, like the Supreme Court here in the US. So because that did not happen, it didn't follow that process. However, when the attorney pleading on behalf of the claimants saw what was happening, we put a request to the CCJ and say, look here, please, at least our constitutional rights as citizens, if we're complaining of something as grievous as that, as it relates to the election, my God, somebody needs to hear us. Again, going back to what we said earlier, you can choose to take the cutlass and you have a fist fight. Somebody needs to hear. And the CCJ said, sure, we're going to listen to them, look at this matter and figure out what the hell is going on there, which they did. And all the evidence were presented, all the information was presented to the CCJ. And having looked at the matter, the CCJ arrived at their conclusion. And like I said, that's a document that Dominicans must read, because it captures in no uncertain term and underscores the fact that our elections are skewed. It's bad. It's pas bon, Tony, in local parlance. I mean, the CCJ, in their final thoughts on their document, okay? Yeah, here the CCJ final thought. I'll get to the more specific response to what you asked. At 108 of that document, section 108, in conclusion, these appeals have been dismissed on the basis of want of jurisdiction. Remember, I just read what dicta means in law. Because there was jurisdiction. Because there was no final decision or order made by the judge for the purposes of section 46 and 7 of the Dominica Constitution. However, they went on to say, there remain areas of grave concern. They didn't just say there are areas of concern, They said grave concerns about how the process of these elections were conducted. That's the judges speaking there, at the CCJ level. Future elections in Dominica ought not to proceed with these or similar tints. So they're saying, hey guys, hold up. Don't go and have any other election unless we clean this mess up. They went on to say, for my part, in relation to the electors list issue, and that is, I will explain in a few. When you ask what are the areas we are challenging, the electors list is a very fundamental area, as I will explain in a few. For my part, in relation to the electors list issue and the related preliminary conclusion of the trial judge on the pleading as to unlawfulness, the Court of Appeal arguably may have had jurisdiction on constitutional ground. You know what they're saying? They're saying as it relates to the lease, the Court of Appeal may have had jurisdiction on constitutional grounds, irrespective of whether the decision was considered in the context of section 46 and 7, final or not. So they're saying that quite apart from whether the Court of Appeal may or may not have jurisdiction to have looked at the entire case, just on the matter of the electors list, they may have had jurisdiction to look at that. There can be no doubt, they went on to say, that this particular decision conclusively preempted any future inquiry into arguable unlawful conduct by the election authorities that potentially went to the root of free and fair election. Remember a while ago I said, are we just looking at free and fair in a vacuum, or are we looking at free, fair, transparent, and accountability? They say that went to the root of free and fair election. So I wanted to present that, Tony, so our listeners could get a good view of what's going on. Now, earlier on you asked about the defendants. And yes, there are 9 defendants listed, starting with the president of Dominica as the first defendant. And the reason being is that, like we said in our JCI tenets, no man is above the law. You see right here in America, Trump feels he's above the law and the Supreme Court wants to give him immunity and all this nonsense going on. No man is above the law. None. So if the president is not exercising his or her function in keeping with the Constitution, then that's a matter of concern to us. You can't be immune. You can't just do what you want, as you want, how you want, do the bidding of whoever you want to do the bidding, irrespective of what the Constitution say or doesn't say, and just feel, well, hey, some people argue. There's the argument going that the president is immune and you cannot take the president to court. I will not go into that now. I'll leave that for us to debate or argue in the courts. Okay. However, we have the second defendant as the chief elections officer. He's the chief CEO of the Electoral Commission, and as such, his position is in the Constitution as well. And if he does not acted as he should, we believe some explanation is required. We have the Attorney General as a third defendant. We have the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Stowe, as a fourth defendant. And we have the other commissioners being Mr. Shillingford, Mr. James, Mr. Lennox Lawrence, Alec Lawrence, as fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh and eighth defendant, respectively, defendant. And we also have Dominica Broadcasting Corporation as a ninth defendant, because we feel too that on the question of, and let's understand that. I told someone recently, the government of Dominica happens to be out of the Dominica Labour Party. So as a political party, they put up candidates. The Freedom Party, the UWP, and the Labour Party candidates won the 11 seats to form the government. But the government is not the Labour Party. That's completely different. The Labour Party is an entity by itself. The government is a government for the people, all the people, everybody. And therefore, when you have a political campaign going on, the Dominica Labour Party cannot have exclusive right to an organ of government, which is the Broadcasting Corporation, which is a quasi-government agency. You cannot now, as a political party, engage a government statutory corporation to do your bidding as a political party. So hence the reason why DBS is a ninth defendant. You must say to us, what did the Dominica Labour Party paid? Were there special privileges? Were other political parties given equal access if they had asked for it, and they were prepared even to pay for it as well? So that's a huge question to be asked as far as the declaration under the Constitution. Okay. Now, let me refer our listeners to our Constitution again, because remember, as I said in section 117, right?
Mm-hmm.
Constitution is the supreme law. Nothing
Yep.
about it.
Nothing. Yeah.
So if, for example, let's say, for example, government goes into parliament and pass some legislation that says X, Y, and Z, and that legislation is inconsistent with the Constitution, that piece of legislation becomes null and void.
Non-constitutional. Mm-hmm.
It has no effect.
No effect.
It's dead, because the Constitution takes precedent over that piece of legislation. So here what the Constitution says at section 33(2)(a), as it relates to persons who are entitled to vote in Dominica. Every Commonwealth citizen of the age of 18 years or upward who possesses such qualification relating to residence, you know what I'm saying? Listen to that. Qualification relating to residence or domicile in Dominica, as Parliament may prescribe, shall, unless he is disqualified by Parliament from registration as a voter for the purposes of electing a representative, be entitled to be registered as such a voter in accordance with the provision of any law in that behalf, and no other persons may be so registered. You know what I just read? It speaks of residence and domicile.
Domicile. Yep.
Okay. Now, for purposes of it made mention there it made mention of disqualify. Okay. Listen, for purposes of disqualify, because it says there, Parliament, unless he is disqualified. Certain categories of persons are disqualified from being registered as electors, even if they possess the necessary qualification, meaning that they're resident, they're domicile, they're 18 years and all that good stuff. These are persons who have been declared to be of some unsound minds, or who are patients of an establishment which is maintained for the treatment of persons who are suffering from mental illness. Persons undergoing a sentence or imprisonment in Dominica, and persons who have been sentenced to death or who are under sentence of imprisonment exceeding 12 months in any part of the Commonwealth. This is the disqualification right there. So we have the view that Section 7 of the Registration of Electors Act, which speaks specifically of absence, is ultra-vires the Constitution. I will not say more on that. As I said, I'm not going to adjudicate the case.
Right. So one of the grounds,
that is one of the declarations we're asking for.
Right. Okay.
Because what that does, as you know the what goes on with persons who stay in New York and Boston and Atlanta and elsewhere and feel that I am absent for the country, but I can fly in today, vote today, fly back out tomorrow. Section 33, 2A talks of resident and domicile. Right. That's what he talks about. And I heard someone again on the media today, some caller called from, I think it's St. Thomas, talking about, oh, he's a U.S. citizen, and if he's in Dominica and they have election, he can vote, blah, 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 blah. You and I know, Tony, there is what is called absenteeism ballots. You can vote by absenteeism. But there's a form you have to fill out, a very detailed form at that. Very detailed. It's not just saying, well, I will fly into America and fly out, and that gives you the privilege to vote, okay? But our law is quite straightforward there, as I just read for you, Section 33, 2A. Right. So that's one of the issues that we raise.
Let's do one more before we take a commercial break.
Yeah. The other issue that comes to mind, which is very critical, is that of the electors list. That is extremely important. Extremely important. And here what the CCJ says as it relates to that particular matter. At Section 81 of the CCJ's report, it says there, electoral lists are central to legitimate and lawful elections. Full stop. Electoral lists are central to legitimate and lawful elections. The duty to maintain the integrity of list of electors falls to the Election Commission. One complaint in this matter is that the polling clerk, returning officer, the chief election officer, failed to use the revised annual list and the supplementary register as a register of electors of the polls. The list complaint. Of the 10 petition filed, 9 contain the list complaint. But they went on further to say at Section 83 of that same report, the first instance judge, Justice Glasgow, which was the judge that looked at the first matter that was thrown out, made the following remark about the list issue at 129. So when he gave his report, which he gave, giving reasons why he's throwing out the matter, at Section 129 of his report, he made the following comments, quote, Section 17 of the Registration Act states that the revised annual list and the supplementary register shall constitute the register of electors for the respective polling district and shall be used, remember I'm using the word shall then several times, shall be used as the register for any election. If the pleadings, that's the kicker there, if the pleadings are taken as correct, then the use of the preliminary and supplementary register at the 6th December 2019 election, there was a patent non-compliance with Section 17 of the Registration Act. You hear what he says?
That is the judge that fraud the case.
That is correct. There is a if he's saying that if the pleadings are taken as correct, there is a patent non-compliance of Section 17 which outlines how this matter should be addressed. And the justices made the point that it says there, at section 80, they said, in this context, I wholly agree with the view of Saunders PCCJ, that is one justice agreeing with another justice. Some of the allegations raised by the appellants are serious and, if true, would be troubling. Periodic election that are free and fair are the lifeblood of a country's democracy. Every effort must be made by a state scrupulously to adhere to the legislative provision governing election, and in particular, those that relate to the integrity of the list of electors. So that's a matter that we're also asking the court to issue a declaration on.
Okay, and before we go to the next matter, I need to take a commercial break.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right. So listeners, I hope you are engrossed in this. It's information. Okay, and Alvin is doing a very good job of getting us a constitutional basis, getting us the legal opinions that have been expressed so far about Dominica's electoral process, and translating it into actual habits and practices that took place during the elections in 2019 and 2022. So that's what we're discussing tonight. If you joined us late, a number of citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica has filed a legal action in the courts, challenging the constitutionality of the elections that took place on December 6, 2019 and December 6, 2022. So I'm going to take a quick break to get the words from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to hear the other basis on which this legal action is being filed.
Presented by
a smart house run by a vengeful AI, a mute witness to an act of unspeakable evil. A breadfruit thief is haunted. A young man unwittingly creates a god. Giant crapos terrorize a community. A witch seeks revenge on her neighbors, and much more. The Piton Noir Writing Collective is thrilled to announce the release of the third book in their acclaimed anthology series, The Flying Crapo. Jumpstart your summer reading with The Flying Crapo, Heroes and Monsters. Now available for purchase on Amazon.com. Get your copy today and embark on a journey filled with heroes, monsters, and the magic of the Caribbean.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com. Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877-698-9894. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
All right, listeners, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us through the break, and thank you to our sponsors. Tonight we are talking about the legal action that has been filed against persons in the government of Dominica, the president, the attorney general, the chief elections officer, the election commissioners, and so on. It has been filed by a representative segment of the people of Dominica on behalf of the citizens of Dominica who feel that their constitutional rights have been aggrieved in the way that the elections were conducted in December 2019 and 2022. There were two elections in a row, and then also we spoke about the attempt to challenge the outcome of the elections in the court and how that was thrown out by the judge, the High Court in Dominica. And when it was taken to the CCJ, they didn't feel they could adjudicate on it because it did not come the route of a High Court, Court of Appeal, and then get to the apex court. But they did give their opinion, which clearly not clearly, but which would seem to indicate that had that case gone through its route and gotten to that apex court would have ruled in favor of the claimants. That is the indication based on the comments that accompanied their decision. So my guest tonight, Mr. Alvin Thomas, is the spokesperson for that initiative that's filing the legal action to attempt to fix, I'm going to say fix the electoral system. Because when we ended before the break, Alvin was just talking about how the Caribbean Court of Justice, the apex court, was saying that the list of electors is one of the most critical aspects of an election. Because if you don't have confidence in the election because you think that the list includes people who may not be qualified to vote, or on the other hand, it is boxing out people who should have, for whatever reason, you believe that the list is compromised, there is no quicker way to undermine the trust
Integrity.
and the integrity that people have in an election, the integrity of an election. So we spoke about the voters list, and the other one we spoke about was the voters list in the sense of who qualifies to be on the voters list and who can remain qualified to be on the voters list, because the
And
Constitution
how you become qualified to vote. What are
to
the
vote. Yeah.
qualifications as
It,
per
it talks about
Constitution?
residence and domicile, and also what provisions were made to make sure that the integrity of the list is maintained. That as people die, they fall off the list. As new people come of age and they're interested in becoming electors, that they have a means of getting on there. And also folks who are no longer domiciled and resident in Dominica, um, how do they continue to be on that list? Alvin, I'll now hand it back to you to
Yes.
continue the discuss
Conversation. Yes.
on what other areas
Yes.
is being challenged in terms of the way like the last, I would say, 5 elections were conducted in Dominica.
And more so the two recent ones. But let me just conclude on the list just one other area which I think is worth noting. And again, if I may reference the CCJ, and it's important, as I say, to reference that document, because a lot of what is there is in relation to the 2019 election. Now, I know some of your listeners might be saying, well, hey, the judge didn't think what's going to happen this time. Let me just say there's a difference. You have what is called a 21-day window to file election petitions, which is what was done. 21 days. Anything outside of that, you cannot file anymore. So something goes wrong with the election, you're not happy with it, you have 21 days to file a petition. The trend in the region is that petitions are generally thrown out. That particular matter is above that. There is no limitation on that, because some people will be asking, well, that election was all the way in 2019 and 2020. Why is now in 2024 you're doing that? Okay. In terms of your constitutional right, where you're seeking the court for a judicial review based on the Constitution, there is no limitation on that. You can go to the court at any time if you feel you were aggrieved. And to say also that the court has an obligation there to listen to that matter. This is not a matter a judge could just decide, well, I'm going to throw it out. No, it's not going to happen like that. We will challenge it and take it, as I said, all the way up to the CCJ, because the Constitution has to be observed. And someone has to be able, from the judicial and the court system, to say, yes, we agree your constitutional right will think, or no, it did not. So this is not a matter that's just going to willy-nilly dealt with. So I just want to put that out there very early. As far as the list, if I may, again, section 88, very quickly, it says here, and these are the justices again giving their opinion. What Justice Glasgow concluded on the totality of the preliminary list evidence placed before him on the pleadings was that in relation to the general election held in Dominica on 6th of December 2019, there was a patent non-compliance with Section 17 of the Registration Act. So the justices at the CCJ said, hey, what Justice Glasgow is saying, or Justice Glasgow concluded on the totality. So although he threw the thing out and say, well, I'm not having a hearing, he came to the conclusion that on the totality of the preliminary evidence before him, that there was a patent non-compliance of Section 17. The CCJ went on to say, this is a matter of most serious concern that ought to be investigative, irrespective of the outcome of this appeal and of this petition. You hear what the CCJ says? Let me repeat that again. This is a matter of most serious concern that ought to be investigated, irrespective of the outcome of this appeal and of these petitions. So that was in 2022. The justices, Glasgow is saying, boy, it looked like this guys didn't do this thing according to the law, boy. The CCJ is saying, well, wait a while now. Based on what we're seeing there, that seems to be so, However, that thing is very serious, guys. Even if this thing doesn't appeal or whatever, this is something that needs to be investigated. But guess what? The Dominica Labour Party and the government went ahead and called an election in 2022 using the same list. The same list that the CCJ saying this is most serious and need to be investigated. We can't use that list. The same list that Glasgow is saying there was a patent non-compliance in the 2019 election. They went ahead and used that same list in 2022, which makes that election unconstitutional and null and void.
As well. Mm-hmm.
You
At
see?
least that's the argument. That's what's being
the
said.
argument. Mm-hmm. So this is Tony. This is very important. Election has consequences. Election is not just going in the polls and putting a vote. election has consequences. Again, if I may refer to the Constitution, in the preamble of our Constitution, it tells you the extent to which Dominicans are supposed to be engaged and involved in the democracy, in the governance of their country. And if, therefore, elections, which is the hallmark of any democracy, if the process is skewed, is faulty, is tainted, and does not give the citizens a transparent, a fair, a free, and accountable elections to elect representatives to represent them and to do the things on their behalf, to make sure they have health services, to make sure they have jobs, to make sure they do the necessary things to develop their lives, then you have rogues and vagabonds in office. And all they will do is just fleece the government. Corruption will fleece in. They will dismantle all institutions. They will line their pockets and their bank accounts. And the average man will be left without nothing. So that is the importance, of elections. And that is why I said earlier that this is a non-partisan issue. This has no political colors, party colors, okay? This is a matter taken up on behalf of the people of Dominica. Let me just say also that the last election that was held in Dominica, the OAS issued a report. The OAS.
Which one? That's the one in 2022.
2022, yes. Mm-hmm. And in the conclusion of the report, here is one observation they made. And it ties in again with the whole question of the list and voters' ID. During its observation, the mission also noted several cases. You hear what the mission is saying? They didn't say they noticed some cases, or a few cases. I'm reading the document of the OAS. The OAS says, during its observation, the mission also noted several cases where voters with the same or very similar names and other demographic data were included in the voters list posted at the polling station. So you have a list at the polling station, and you have Anthony Drago, you have Anthony Drago, you have Anthony C. Drago, you have Anthony B. Drago, you have Anthony L. Drago, you have Anthony Drago, you have Anthony Drago, and with similar demographics. In one instance, hear what the report, the observers are saying. In one instance, witnessed by an OAS observer, so that's a witness of the OAS, that's not the essay. Neither the polling station staff nor the party representative were able to conclusively identify which of the names on their list related to a voter who had presented at the polling station. So if I know anybody give you and say, hey, Tony, go and vote for me. I had the party representing the Labour Party or the whatever party. I don't even know, boy, is that Tony for real now? Did we get to Tony or Alvin? Who we give it to now? It's Mr. No, that's Tony. Okay? Standardized identification criteria or tools would assist in resolving similar occurrences. That is the OAS making that observation, Tony. That is not us.
That I come to vote,
yeah,
and I don't know which name on the list I supposed
the
to be voting on. And the polling clerk cannot help me.
They don't know.
They cannot tell me.
So you come and you decide, yeah, you have to vote. Because you don't have an ID. The list is corrupted. So is anything happen?
Anything happens.
Now, I mean, how can we have an electoral process like that? Seriously. No, seriously, in 2024. And do you know, Tony, in 2024, as we speak, there are as many as let me see, I have the list here. I have a list for Congressional Research Services, Latin America and the Caribbean, fact sheet on leaders and elections. And on that list, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 Caribbean countries listed there, starting from Antigua and Barbuda to Trinidad and Tobago. Dominica listed as well. Dominica is the only island. Maybe St. Vincent, I have to research that one. I had another chance yet. The only island that have not had a change of government in 20 years.
And is it the only island that has not had any electoral reform?
Only island that have not had electoral reform. Only island that do not have voter ID card. Of that list that I have there before me.
That list is produced by whom, you said?
That list is produced by the Congressional Research Services database. It's a legislative, informing of legislative debate since 1914. Okay? And it was last updated on August 26, 2024. So just a few months old.
Right.
It gives you a list of all the various countries. When was their last election? You had, for example, Barbados had theirs in January 19, 2022. We had ours in December.
December.
Next is due by January 2027. Dominica had their
So Alvin, okay, we make that point. A couple of things I want to ask you. I don't know but let us say that on Monday morning, well, he doesn't announce it so far ahead, but let's say on Monday morning, you know, the last time he announced the election during a storm. So there's a storm traveling now. So therefore, on Friday morning, the Prime Minister of Dominica says, I have advised the President to dissolve Parliament and to make arrangements for us to have elections on November 30th, 2024. What happens in a situation like that where this matter is currently before the court?
Well, there are. I will simply say that there are legal recourse that can be taken. I will not go into specific as we speak now, okay, for strategic purposes, but there are legal recourse that can be taken. In addition to that, bear in mind what I said in the press release that we issue. This matter is of great public interest, and it is essential that we as citizens are fully informed. The claimants are committed to ensuring that the voices of all Dominicans are heard and justice served.
The reason I'm asking that is because,
yeah,
let's say I'm the incumbent the party that has the government right now, and I see this coming up, and I say, you know what? Let me try to call an election before this thing gets legs and start to run away. But you're saying that there's a way.
But in addition to that, let me say here that, which I've said on other programs, Dominicans at this point would have to take matters into their hands. And let me just refer to you to a section in because I'm referring to that CCJ report as often as I can, because they themselves recognize the seriousness of this matter and what is likely to happen. Okay, they recognize that as justices, but Dominicans would have to take the matter into their hands and do what is necessary. I would we all would hope that this matter can be resolved in the courts.
So therefore, but I guess the point I'm driving at is that there's supposed to be an urgency, because I remember there was an issue where somebody challenged the appointment, I think, of the president, and by the time the court came around to hearing that matter, the president had already served out his full term.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am fully aware of that. I'm fully aware of that. I'm fully aware of that. And let me just, for purposes again of giving some sort of guidance in terms of the process. The matter was filed on the 4th of September.
4th of
September. Normal scheme of, 4th of September. In the normal scheme of things, the court has a 4-week window, a little over 4-week window. So we just kind of passed the 4-week to issue a date for the hearing. So based on the court's load and all of that, and
there's some flux.
Yes, there's some flux. So it might go 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or whatever. But the attorney is really keeping the tab on that. Once a date has been set for the hearing, the defendants are served. So you have another window during which the defendants are served, which is a 14-day window. So the defendants are served. Hey, you have been served with a notice to answer those charges in the court. A hearing date has been set. And then the defendant now has to issue a response. There's another window again for that. They have another, I think it's 7 or 10 days thereabout, if I am correct, to respond. Failing which, if they don't respond, then the matter will be heard in the absence. Okay? So that is the process that it takes. Now, in terms of the conclusion, we would hope that given the seriousness of this matter, the courts would say, hey, this thing is very serious. Let's deal with that. Because based on the question, the scenario you are painting, it means that if another snap election is called this December, which is just what, 2 years in office, thereabout, not even 3. That'd be 3 snap elections, you know, Tony.
Right.
At a time when we're talking about a list that is corrupt, we're talking about all these things that is wrong. But hear what the justices said, which is important. Listen to that. That's very important, and that's why I answered the way I answered when you asked the question. Section 77 of the CCJ's report. And I really want to urge every Dominican who have access to get a copy of that report. Let's not dismiss it. We cannot at this stage say, well, okay, we may not have the political will to do certain things just yet. And therefore, the court is whatever. So to hell with the court, or to hell with this one, to hell. I mean, then we're back to anarchy, which I said earlier. I mean, it's like a rat cornered, you know. If there is not a way out, there's anarchy. But hear what the justices said at section 77. Moreover, without such free and fair election, the preambular value of the creation and maintenance of and respect for lawfully constituted authority would be fatally undermined. You hear what they say there? These are, Tony, these are learned people that are speaking there, you know. Hear the language that they're using. The consequences of such a denial that a reflection on Caribbean history demonstrates includes loss of legitimacy, public unrest, and even revolt. You hear what the justices are saying? So the justices recognize that if you don't address this matter, that there is a possibility of loss of legitimacy, public unrest, and even revolt. In contemporary terms, free and fair election are so fundamental to the democratic way of life that without it, the very legitimacy and sovereignty of the constitutional state is brought into question, constituted as it is by the people of Dominica. In this regard, it is worth reminding ourselves, quote, the will of the people shall be the basis and the authority, and they have legitimacy in bracket of government, unquote. You hear what they say there? You heard what the justices said there, Tony? I couldn't have said it better. So they are saying, if I may just paraphrase, that if you fail to do what you do, the consequences will be revolt.
Yep. And they use the word fatal undermine. Fatal means death, that the whole process of democracy will die.
These are the legitimacy, sovereignty. You have no right to govern.
Right.
And these are the words of justices. And remember earlier, I told you what dicta means in law. Okay? Dicta in law refers to a comment, suggestion, or observation made by a judge. And in this case, there were judges, not just a judge. There were 5 justices in an opinion. So they're giving their opinion there right now. That is not necessary to resolve the case. Because like I told you, it was an interlocutory case. And as such, it is not legally binding on other courts, but may still be cited as persuasive authority in future litigation, also referred to as dictum and judicial dicta. So that answers your question too.
That answers my question. One of the member of the audience, Pyro Davidson, is asking, how are people being informed? I guess like how we're doing tonight.
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question, Pyro. Let me say good evening to my brother Pyro Davidson, man. It's really good to see you there. Basically what we're doing now, okay? By having this program, I intend to do a couple more programs. One of the things that we have to be strategic in what we do is not cloud the airwave with so many issues all at once. As we know, there's another legal matter in the courts, which is the CBI was taking that oxygen in the air as well. And I think it's a great decision taken to take that matter to the court. But it was consuming that oxygen. And there's so many other things happening. But hopefully moving forward, as I said, we'll be keeping the Dominican people informed and engaged as we go along, because this can be a process that will take several steps, as I said, from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the CCJ, and obviously folks will be informed. The actual copy of what was filed, for all intent and purposes, is public document. It's filed in the court. Anything filed in the court, you can go to the court and get a copy or access a copy online. So that is there. But we intend to continue that program. It is my hope that tonight's program with TDN, it won't be the first and the last as it relates to this particular matter, that I would, I'd be happy if asked to come again and discuss certain aspect of the case, and to keep folks informed as to where we're going and how we are progressing on this particular matter. But it's a great question. It's a great question.
And the last time you were on with Pyro as well, we spoke about doing a project on the Constitution, in the sense of making it become more familiar, more comfortable with your Constitution. I always make the reference to the Bible. There was once upon a time the Bible was considered to be such a sacred book that you could only read it under certain circumstances. You take a shower before it's a holy book, it's this and it's that. Right now, people walk around with their Bible in their pocket, pull it out at any time, and they read it.
Right.
It would be nice to do a project that aims to have people have that same kind of relationship with their Constitution.
Absolutely.
Where people become intimately familiar with the Constitution. Another listener, Mr. Thomas, McDonald Thomas, is asking, can the DPP intervene in this case?
No.
I guess in the backdrop of the DPP has discontinued so many.
No. I mean, well, let me just say, she may attempt to put it this way, like everything else, but I don't think she has, because it's not a matter where, let's say the
state is
right. The
state
is
not the state
prosecuting a matter, and the state
and then
decides the evidence is not compelling, and therefore I'm not moving forward with that. This is a matter where a citizen is claiming that their constitutional right has been aggravated under the Constitution, and you have to give me that privilege in the court to show the court where I think my constitutional rights were aggrieved, and to seek redress. So no, you cannot stop it.
Okay. And just for clarification, is there any involvement of any of the political parties in putting this whole legal matter together and filing the legal matter in the court?
No, not directly in any way, shape, or form. I mean, one of the claimants there have some connection with, well, two actually of the claimants have connection with different political parties, but they're doing that in their own right
as citizens
of Dominica,
not members of
under the Constitution, but not members of a political party.
Members of political party.
No, in their own right, and they're able to bring forward the evidence. So, for example, among the claimants, you will have one will say, well, hey, on the last election, when I asked for the list, I didn't get the list, or the list that I got wasn't right, or blah, 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 whatever the case might be. All the evidence will be presented, and the court will have an opportunity to look at the evidence and to make a determination. But fundamentally, as I said, it deals with some of the very pointing areas as it relates, for example, to what makes you eligible to vote under the Constitution, okay, which is what is the thing, and even the Electoral Commission at Section 38 of the Constitution mandates the Commission to oversee and supervise election. That's
the conduction of election.
under the Constitution.
No, there are a couple other things. One, I know there are how many? There are five claimants, 5 people who actually filed the lawsuit.
Four claimants.
4. But can regular citizens file like statements of support? Is that I mean,
well,
in terms of educating the public?
Yeah.
Because I know for sure I was part of a group.
Right.
And we requested a list of electors from the Electoral Commission, like maybe 2 weeks before the election. And the list that they gave us was not the same list. I know for a fact. It was not the same list that was posted at the polling station in the constituency that we were
well, subject to being guided by counsel, I know we may not be able to add another claimant.
No, I'm not talking about adding claimant. I'm talking about
we
people
can
who
add
just
evidence. Yes,
people who just submit supporting statements.
Yes, we can submit additional evidence to what has already presented to the court if that comes to the fore. Yeah.
Right, because we want people to take action.
Yeah.
So the action that people want to take is to tell them that this is a public matter.
Yeah.
And therefore they can get a copy of this filing. Where can they get a copy of this filing?
You can go on the court's site, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in the High Court of Dominica, and I think there's a drop down where I believe you can see documents filed, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it readily in front.
Maybe I think I maybe have it.
Yeah, but I think if you go there,
mm-hmm.
you will see, because it's a public document. I mean, it's filed at the court. I mean, it's the same way that somebody will go to the court and see your house is up for sale or blah blah blah.
Right.
That's public information, you know.
So it's filed with the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Is that where it's filed? Okay.
It's filed. It's the full title is the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in the High Court of Justice in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Okay.
And the number is, I don't know if there is a drop down where you can put, it's DOM HCV, D as in David, O as in Oscar, M as in Mary, H as in Harry, C as in Charlie, V as in Victor of 2024.
Right.
So it should come up. But but again, we really need to underscore that, and that is one of the learning lessons that have to come out of that. That when these actions have been taken, this is not an action simply that the 4 claimants decide personal to them. Yes, they're raising this issue, but this issue is on behalf of the people of Dominica. Okay, that is extremely important. We are coming forward to do that on behalf of the people of Dominica. And let me say though, Tony, just as we speak, and going back to the question of how important, the rights to vote and all of that has become. This particular month, October 31st, 2024, marks 73 years since adult suffrage was introduced in Dominica. Adult suffrage was introduced in Dominica on the 31st of October, 1951. And we know what happened prior to that.
Right.
You had to have land, you had to have money, you were a man, women couldn't vote, and a certain stature. And in 1951, even when we get at adult suffrage, there was still some restriction on women. And you recall that the age was 21, and then it was brought down to 18. So this is a very fundamental matter. In a couple of days' time, a couple of weeks' time, we'll be celebrating independence. 46 years as an independent nation. And the question we've always asked, what have we done, or where have we gone, how have we strived in 46 years? 4 years from now will be 50 years, half a century. And if going into 4 years from now, half a century, you're telling me you want to have an election with an electoral process that is so screwed up as we go into 50 years of independence as an independent nation, come on, man, something is wrong with that picture.
No, definitely.
Something is wrong. And I'm appealing tonight to everyone to speak on this issue. You may not be as articulate as someone else, but make it your business to inform yourself, to have a conversation with the person next to you. And that way we could spread the word and we could raise that consciousness and get that engagement that we need, so that everybody understands that this is a matter that affects all of us. And as I've said already, election has consequences. If you put the wrong people if you put this guy to drive that bus and he doesn't have a license, or he doesn't know how to drive, or he's drunk, or he have
the new driver cannot drive, huh?
Exactly. He's taking you anywhere, Tony, and you're on that bus with him. You're hoping to say,
there's that calypso.
You know, so this is how I see this whole electoral process. That if it is not fixed properly, and we have an even playing field where we can have the question remains: if this government, which comes out of the Labour Party, feels so confident in their skin, so confident that what they're doing is right and everything is fine, why don't they serve a 5-year term in office? Why for the last two terms they have to be calling snap elections? Well before the 5 years. They don't even do 4.5 years, you know. Well before the 5 years. There's a reason why we have a 5-year term. All of these things were not just, there's a basis for those things. But well before, and I'm hearing talk as we see about snap election. If it's December, it means from 2020 to 24, that's 2 years, you know, of the 5 years, Tony, 2 years.
Yeah.
So what does that say? Clearly, it's saying something, and you want
that would be 3 elections.
Yes.
3 elections in the span of one legal term.
Yes, and not only that,
2019 to 2024 is 5 years.
And not only that, Tony, it will be 3 election during which an electoral reform process is taking place. Because bear in mind, in 2019, when they called that election, that was just around the time they had appointed Byron.
Right.
And remember the independence celebration, that's where he announced that Byron was appointed, this emirate, blah, blah, blah. And only to find out right after independence, on the 6th of November, he dissolved the House and called election in December of 2019. Then Byron had his work doing. Byron almost finished his report. He had submitted a report with whatever
Part 1,
recommendations. And here he goes again, dissolve the House and call an election 6th of December 2022. Now we are talking of draft legislations. And let me say that too, we are seeking a declaration on some of these draft legislations and sections of that 2024. That is also a declaration we're seeking of the court. But here it is, you're talking about legislations to improve things, modernize, whatever term he's using, and you want to call an election even before that electoral reform or modernization or this legislation goes through, and even while a matter is pending in the court. Obviously, you're asking for revolt in the country based on what the CCJ said at section 77 of the report.
Right.
You're asking for trouble.
So, as we wrap up, Alvin, we spoke about people becoming familiar with the case, that the legal filing. As I am suggesting that folks, as many people as possible, I am suggesting that, should say, oh, I know there's a filing in the court. I would like to issue a statement in support. This is my experience, why I agree that this is a matter that needs to be looked into. I know I'm not an attorney, but I know people file briefs as a friend of the court or whatever it is they call it, amicus briefs and so on. So folks, get yourself familiar, but also find out how you as a citizen can support. I'm sure there are legal fees. that has to
Absolutely.
be
I'm glad
paid.
you raised that, Tony. I was about to raise that. I'm glad you
How
did.
can I contribute
I'm glad you did.
towards outlaying some of those fees?
Mhm.
Because you wonder, after the CCJ gave their opinion of the 2019 elections that was so clear, and then there was an election that was announced. How come, say, an opposition party, how come somebody else didn't step in at that time and try to file an injunction in the court to stay that election? And the only explanation I can have is probably money. So folks,
Yeah,
freedom and democracy is not free.
that's right.
You have to participate,
That's
and
right.
you have to support.
Yeah,
And that only at that time you can enjoy life in what the Constitution described it as, what, a sovereign democratic
yeah,
republic.
that's
You
right.
know? So I mean, I want you to give some closing remarks, and of course we want you to come back. We want to keep this current and fresh in the eyes of the people. I think we should engage Munsewe to do some grassroots education on the ground to inform I think Pyro is there, that's why I'm saying that. We should really mobilize and get the word out that this is an action that's in the court. This is why it's done. This is the outcome. This is the importance of it. Get support across the island for it. And so I'm gonna let you give some closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Well, thank you, and let me just start off by just pigging back on what you said as far as the support. Yes, we welcome and we would gladly um, um, ask for your support in not just um, talking about the case, being familiar with the case, being informed about the case, but as well as financial support,
Yeah.
because that is important. The attorney fee has to be paid. We were blessed, if I may use that term, that we were able to come up with the initial fees to take it to where it is right now. But obviously, as the matter progresses and it goes to the higher court, the Court of Appeal, and possibly the CCJ, there's going to be more fees associated. So we will, what I cannot just yet say tonight in terms of a specific medium for making that donation, but my number, anyone want to reach me, my number is 404-396-4807. Again, 404-396-4807. I'm making an appeal to especially all true and just and patriot Dominicans, especially those of us in the diaspora, because what I will say is that we all are going through our challenges, no matter what part of the world we are on the globe. But I think those folks back home seem to have it a little harder, and those of us in the diaspora may have it a little better. And bear in mind, I always say to people, every $1 US dollar you contribute is almost $3 EC. So if a matter is going to cost, let's say, 60,000 or whatever it is, that is just 20,000, just a little over 20,000 US dollars. So I'm putting it this way to say that support it, and we're doing that. Not, as I said, it's just not for the claimant, not for ourselves, but we're doing that for generations to come, for our children who are here and those unborn that will be coming. Because when all is said and done and the process is well taken care of, we'll be able, in a true democracy as our Constitution provides for, we'll be able to elect our governments, hold them accountable, and have them do what is right for us, the people. So I think we need to see it in that vein. And I'm really humbled and want to express my thanks for allowing me that platform to explain to the people as best as I could in layman terms what is at stake here. Okay? This is a very, very significant legal step. And we are hoping and looking for success. And we are confident, based on the arguments put forward, that we will be successful in the court. Let me also say to those of you who might feel a little dejected by, well, boy, that court system not for us, boy, anything in court is with government. Court. No. Let's not view it like that, guys. Let's not. Let us still have our faith in the court system. Whatever little that we have, let's maintain it. We don't have as much in the politicians, but let's still hope that the judicial system, the court system, as we say, going all the way up to the CCJ, let's prove them wrong. Let us prove them wrong. Let's put it down. Let's do what happened. Because, like I said, I just read for you at section 77 what the justices said. They said if this thing is not handled properly, based on Caribbean history and everything, you'll have unrest and revolt in the place. And none of us want that. None of us want that. So I am saying, let's still have our confidence in the court system. Let's present it there. Let's challenge it there. Let's get the folks come in and explain why they did certain things or why certain things were not done and get it right and moving forward. So thanks again, Tony. I look forward to coming back because that's just the tip of the iceberg.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
I mean, we could spend another 2 hours there
talking about it. No, you're very welcome, Alvin. I'm going to have you back.
TDN and your team for having me. Thank you. And to our listeners who stayed with us up to now, I want to thank you guys and thank you for the questions that you asked. Great questions. I think they were all very good questions. Thank you and have a pleasant night. And happy Independence. Well, I don't know if I'll come back on your program for Independence. So I just want to say happy Independence to all our Dominican folks out there.
So relevant this Independence season. Alvin, thank you so much for coming. And thank you for being so prepared. Tons of paper on your desk, research back and forth. I love that about you. You know, it shows a certain level of respect for the people. That you're not just coming and just saying what's convenient or expedient in the moment.
I'm not a politician, Tony. I don't give a political speech.
but no, I mean, is that you're not trying to make anybody decide anything. You're coming and you're providing the information, and you're being very transparent. From this document is from this organization, this is from this institution.
Reference.
You can check it yourself, and when you get the information, you can make up your mind for yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's what I admire, the meticulousness with which you do your work. So thank you for that. When you come back, what I want us to talk about is, you know, we hear rumblings about draft legislation, kind of based on Dennis Byron's report and blah 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 blah. I want to ask you, when you come back, how does that the legislation that's being talked about, how does that affect this filing that we're doing?
Sure.
Will it adequately address the concerns on how not? But like I said, that's for the next discussion. I would like to have you back in the same Independent season that's coming up.
Yeah, certainly.
So maybe if not next week, the following Wednesday.
Yeah, we can do that.
We can have another session to give you some time. I like to prepare, find out what is it that they're talking about that they want to do in that draft legislature, and does it address the concerns? Or are they trying to legitimize illegal action? All right.
I'll be happy to do that, but I'll just say very quickly, though I know we are out of time, but I'll just say very quickly, there are two fundamental areas. Well, maybe I would say three fundamental areas that will determine that process is good. One, your list. That's fundamental. It's like, you know, you've been in credit union. If you're not a member, you can't vote to elect people to the board of directors. You're not a member. So the list is important. The other thing which predates the list, which maybe even come before the list, is qualification.
Right, to be on that list.
Qualification, residency, domicile, or absence from state, which has contained now in the legislation. The Constitution is clear. It tells you what makes you qualified to vote. Residency, domicile. And the third area, I would say, has to do with identification. Okay? How do you present yourself? How do I know you're Tony Drygo and you're not Alvin
How
Thomas?
does the system
Yes.
verify who that elector
Because
is?
if you, when you go
So
to the
that's
poll
fundamental. Yeah.
and you know a name, when you look on the list and you see a name on the list, Alvin Thomas, you could just go to the poll and say you're Alvin Thomas.
Right.
You have nothing to
And if
show.
Alvin Thomas hasn't voted and they have no reason to stop
Yeah,
you, just vote.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing to show to say,
Right.
well, hey, I am Alvin or I'm Tony.
Mhm.
So these are three big major issues, among other issues, but I'm just
Right.
pointing out those three as we speak.
As we
But
speak.
yeah, I'll
Okay.
be happy to come back and
All
we
right.
can
So we'll have you
proceed.
back for that.
Yeah.
Okay. But so Alvin, thanks. Folks, remember, none of this that we do in Conks if you don't have good health. The month of October is Diabetes Awareness Month. So I hope, and also I think mental health and homelessness. And I think there's a third one. So it's diabetes, it's breast cancer awareness month, diabetes awareness of mental health. All of those things I would say can be mitigated with lifestyle, what you eat, how you eat, and how you keep your body active, how aware that you are of how of your sleep, of your diet, of your exercise. So just briefly, I'm not going to take more time. So just be aware of that, folks. And those of you who are in Florida, if your people are in Florida, we wish you, safe passage of Hurricane Milton, and we look forward to hearing tomorrow that it was rough, but I'm safe. All right. So hope all your folks are are safe. Listeners, I want to say good night. I want to say thank you, special thank you to my guest, Mr. Alvin Thomas. As I said, we're going to bring him back, and when he comes back, we're going to continue the conversation around elections, around democracy, around having elections that we can confidently and robustly say that our electoral process is above board, and that we are committed to continual improvement, and be a self-correcting country, because that's the only way we can preserve what we have, is to be a country that is self-correcting. We see behavior, we see customs, we see habits that's um, having negative impact. We can self-correct. We have mechanisms built in that we can self-correct, and that's what elections are. Really, you have an election. You give somebody control of your resources, and you hope that that person does a good job. And you have elections so that if you're not satisfied with how that person is handling those resources, you have an opportunity to put somebody else in there. There's a mechanism for that. But when you hand that to that person, you trust in that that person is going to give you that back. So in 5 years' time, you can either say, I'm going to give you 5 more years, or I'm going to try this other person instead. That's really simply what it is. It's elections are simply one of the means of checks and balances where a country can self-correct. And so when that process is interrupted and you don't have an effective self-correcting mechanism as in elections, how do people, one, you get wastage because now you have somebody that is not representing you properly and not utilizing the resources of the country properly, and you don't have the means to replace them. So that is one consequence. And two, that person becomes tyrannical because that they have all that resources that you put in their care, your police, your military, your money, your your means of production, all of those things you put in their control. And if that person decides, I want to keep it, I'm enjoying it so much that I want to keep it for myself, you should be able to have an election that takes them out. But if that election process becomes corrupted, then we're heading to an ugly place. And so I want to thank the citizens who put themselves up to bring that legal matter to court. I want to thank Alvin. I'm sure there's a whole team of folks that we is working with, and like I said, we're going to bring him back to talk about. I saw a presentation, like a 12-minute presentation from Dennis Byron, where he was talking about his final report and summarizing his main recommendations. Maybe we'll play that next time, and we can talk around that, because I'm thinking that the draft legislation may be addressing it, and if it's not, we'll see why it may not be addressing it. So, folks, good night. I'm going to leave you to be really, really positive about your folks who are in Florida, and let's get some good news tomorrow. All right. So see you guys next week, Wednesday, for another episode of This Week in Interview. Good night.